Welcome to this week's show. On this week's show, we're going to cover two items. The first one is going to be a press conference held by Russian President Vladimir Putin and a very interesting letter that was sent by the Armenian Foreign Minister to the European Parliament. And then we're going to close with some year-end reflections. Let's start with our first topic of the week, which starts with the press conference that Russian President Vladimir Putin held. Let's see what he had to say about Armenia and Artsakh.
Но не мы же отказались от Карабаха. Это Армения признала, что Карабах является частью Азербайджана. Сделали это инициативно, на самом деле. И нас особенно не информировали о том, что готовится к принятию такого решения. Я сейчас... Это просто констатация факта. Потому что там есть в этом и плюсы, и минусы. Значит, ну так произошло. И процессы сложные внутриполитические. Не думаю, что в интересах Армении как-то прекратить свое членство в СНГ, в Евразес, в ОДКБ.
He's right, of course, in a small way about Prime Minister Nicolas Pashinyan's responsibility for part of the disaster in Artsakh. Exactly what we're discussing is his recognition of Artsakh being part of Azeri territory without getting very specific rights and securities guaranteed as part of that recognition, that it's an exact quid pro quo. So he's correct about that. But frankly, his comments here are atrocious, and they're essentially designed to absolve himself of the disaster and the criminality that happened in Artsakh in September of this year. Part of the proof of that is the fact that the position that the Armenian Prime Minister took last September is actually the official position of the Russian government and the official position of Vladimir Putin, and has been for years, and he has said so repeatedly. As far as the second point about it is not wise for Armenia to leave these Russian-based institutions, that's frankly for us to decide based on what our national interest is. All the rest of it are frankly threats against our national statehood and the obvious continuing Western pivot of Armenia. Now let's move on to the very interesting letter that was sent, the open letter by the Armenian Foreign Minister Arat Mirzoyan to the European Parliament, actually the members of the European Parliament. And this is what it says. My government warmly welcomes the European Commission's decision to recommend the European Council to open accession talks with Moldova and Ukraine and to grant candidate status to Georgia. The decision is welcomed not only by the government of Armenia, but also the people of Armenia who have European aspirations. We are not only committed to continuing this path, but even coming closer to the European Union to the extent the EU will deem it possible. With this letter, we would like to once again stress Armenia's true intentions and determination to be a part of the European family, which is of the same democratic values and principles as Armenia and the Armenian people. Now, how do we interpret this? I think the key phrase in the letter is coming closer, is because frankly, at this current moment, you can't get much more closer than we are to the European Union. And in reality, what this means in context is eventual application to join the European Union. There's really no other way to read the logical conclusion of what this letter means. And frankly, that is quite logical in the bigger scheme of things. One, because frankly, there's no future being in the Russian camp. We've already recognized that, learned that lesson over the last year or two. Our political system is Western and democratic. The aspirations of the people of this country, especially of the young, is Western. And in reality, we're a much better EU candidate country than almost all the countries on the list ahead of us. We have higher per capita income than most of them, and actually much higher rates of economic growth than almost all of them. Looking at this from a wider lens, in reality, what we need to do or attempt to do is sort of create a synthesis between becoming a Western country while having a working and transactional set of relations with Russia. This is very hard to do in the current context because of the massive polarization that's been caused by the Ukraine war. But this fever will eventually break. At some point over the next year or two, the Ukraine war is going to end, and it's going to end by negotiations. And if that happens, there's almost very few list of countries that can actually be interlocutors between both sides, that actually have working or at least good or working relationships with both sides. The logical candidate, as we saw in the negotiations that happened last year, was in Turkey. But given Turkey's current position in support of Hamas against Israel, that is not likely to happen. And if anybody thinks this is a fanciful notion for this country to be a place where we can become an interlocutor in the wider world in creating peace or bringing East and West together where there are commonalities of interest, is last year's meeting between Sergei Naryshkin of the Foreign Intelligence Service of Russia and William Burns of the CIA. And that meeting, as we all know, took place in Yerevan last year. In the long term, the ideal situation for Armenia as a country that is actually integrated into the West, but plays the role of becoming the vehicle, or one of the many vehicles, in integrating a post-Russian Putin into the wider world system. Now let's move on to our second topic of the week, which is sort of my year-end observations. I walk around Yerevan, I walk around the city, and we have massive displays of Christmas, holiday, New Year's celebrations on Republic Square. All the fanciest restaurants in Yerevan compete with each other to put up New Year's decorations. I frankly have no issue with people celebrating in private or with their families, and children everywhere in the world always deserve their joy. But I must say that from a perspective of a public citizen, this is all quite offensive based on everything that has happened this year. Now, what are we exactly celebrating here? The fact that thousands of our compatriots are living in gyms and community centers around this country? Are we celebrating the fact that of the ranks of the millions of people in the Armenian diaspora, there's probably less than 100 of them here helping our refugees? Are we celebrating the fact that our patrimony and matrimony of the last 2,000 years in Artsakh has been left in the hands of degenerates and criminals? Are we celebrating the fact that at this moment our state is groveling for a peace agreement that will put the official stamp of approval on the second Armenian genocide? Or are we celebrating the fact that we mistake our endless capacity for humiliation and collective lack of honor for resilience and stoicism? No, no, no. This is no time to celebrate. This is the time to do more and to talk less. This is the time to give more and to take less. This is the time for humility and only to take pride in works done. Most importantly, it's time to hate with our full measure of devotion, weakness, corruption, and mediocrity that have made this terrible year possible. In conclusion, here in CivilNet, we believe in words that lead to action. I'm going to ask all of you to join me and my family in helping the Hacopian family that was ethnically cleansed out of Artsakh, who just received their new permanent home in the village of Metz-Marstrik. What we need is, after the house has been provided for them, is $4,000 to furnish their new home. The Hacopian family is a young family with 5 children. The youngest is 8 months old, and the oldest is 8 years old. I would ask you to go to the Powers Foundation website and to give generously, and we'll be putting up the website for you to do so. So please give, join us in giving, and give till it hurts. Thank you for joining me in this week's episode of Insights.
The unifying theme of the last man's value system is comfort. Everything that he does is for the sake of having an easy life. The last man doesn't want to overexert himself. He never strays far from the equilibrium of comfort. One no longer becomes poor or rich. Both require too much exertion. Who still wants to rule? Who obey? Both require too much exertion. Entertainment is important, but the last man is careful lest the entertainment be too harrowing. This drive for comfort has even led to changes in where they live. They have left the regions where it was hard to live, for one needs warmth. One still loves one's neighbour and rubs against him, for one needs warmth.